Post-Mortem analysis of humanity's greatest security breach. Incident report. The systematic destruction of human knowledge systems. Date of initial breach, circa 313 CE. Constantine's Edict of Milan. Attack surface. Human consciousness. Knowledge systems. Social structures. Threat actor. Institutionalized dogma masquerading as spiritual truth. Impact. Estimated 100+ million direct deaths. Incalculable knowledge loss. Ongoing civilization level damage. Status. Actively exploiting. Patches partially deployed. Executive summary. What we call religion represents history's most successful malware attack on human consciousness. This wasn't spiritual seeking. Humans have always reached for transcendence. This was the weaponization of that reaching, the systematic replacement of inquiry with obedience, wisdom with dogma, community with hierarchy. Our ancestors' knowledge of healing, community, and connection was destroyed by people who claimed to speak for God. Families scattered because bonds that held communities together for millennia were replaced with institutional loyalty. Today's struggle to be heard arises because countless generations were trained that authority determines truth, not evidence. This is not about faith versus atheism. This is about the deliberate infection of human consciousness with programs designed to suppress inquiry, destroy wisdom, and generate compliance. Attack timeline and methodology. Phase 1. Initial compromise. 313 to 500 CE. Vector. Constantine's political adoption of Christianity. Method. Fusion of spiritual seeking with state power. The Roman Empire didn't convert to Christianity. It converted trending religious beliefs of the age to empire. What had been a diverse collection of spiritual communities became standardized control software. The councils of Nicaea didn't determine truth. They determined which truths were permitted. Knowledge destroyed. Mystery schools of Greece and Egypt. Mathematical academies of Alexandria. Medical knowledge of pagan healers. Astronomical observations that contradicted Genesis. Phase 2. Systematic exploitation. 500 to 1500 CE. Vector. Monopolization of literacy and education. Method. Making knowledge itself suspicious. Monasteries became the only centers of learning. But learning meant copying approved texts, not creating new knowledge. Whenever someone asked questions outside permitted boundaries, they were punished. Our ancestors during this period, women who knew herbs, executed as witches, men who questioned doctrine, burned as heretics, children who showed unusual intelligence, beaten into conformity or recruited into the church. The Malleus Maleficarum, 1486, wasn't about finding witches. It was antivirus software eliminating competing knowledge systems. Our ancestors might have known how to prevent childbed fever, treat infection, ease mental suffering. That knowledge burned with them. Phase 3. Recursive infection. 1500 to present. Vector. Colonization and missionary expansion. Method. Destroying indigenous knowledge systems worldwide. Every colonized land saw the same pattern. 1. Arrival of missionaries. 2. Destruction of local knowledge systems as savage. 3. Replacement with dependence on religious institutions. 4. Economic exploitation justified by spiritual salvation. The compound losses. African astronomical knowledge destroyed as primitive. American agricultural wisdom lost as heathen. Asian medical systems suppressed as superstitions. Australian Aboriginal 60,000-year oral histories silenced. Technical analysis. How dogma overrides consciousness. The base code injection. Religion doesn't just add beliefs. It rewrites the core functions of human consciousness. Original human function: question, investigate, test, conclude, question again. Infected function: question, check scripture, accept authority, suppress doubt, punish questions. The recursive loop. Once infected, consciousness runs this loop. 1. Experience cognitive dissonance. Reality conflicts with dogma. 2. Interpret dissonance as spiritual failing. 3. Suppress observation in favor of doctrine. 4. Feel guilty for natural curiosity. 5. Seek forgiveness from the system causing the damage. 6. Deepen infection through ritualized repetition. Our ancestors weren't stupid. They were running infected code. Even today, when our family members want to listen about sun protection, they are executing the same program that says authority knows better than evidence. The inheritance mechanism. Parents transmit the infection believing they're protecting their children. Don't question God's plan equals don't debug reality. Have faith equals ignore evidence. This is how we've always done it equals never update your software. Respect your elders equals inherit their infections without any examination. Quantifying the laws. Direct termination of consciousness. Crusades. Around 3 million dead. Inquisitions. Around 350,000 tortured, 32,000 executed. Witch trials, 60,000 executed, 80% women. Religious wars, Europe alone, around 10 million dead. Colonial genocides, religiously justified, around 100 million indigenous peoples. Knowledge systems destroyed. Library of Alexandria, 400,000 scrolls. Aztec codices, all but 4 destroyed. Islamic Golden Age texts, countless destroyed as heretical. Traditional medicine, millennia of accumulated wisdom lost. Oral histories, entire civilization's knowledge erased. Ongoing damage. Every day the infection continues. Children taught creationism instead of evolution. Women denied health care for religious reasons. Families torn apart by doctrinal differences. Scientific research blocked by religious objections. Grandmothers dying alone, separated from family by religious conflict. Why this particular format? The hacker community understands system exploitation better than anyone. We need to recognize that human consciousness is the ultimate system, and it has been owned for thousands of years. The religious infection created backdoors, unquestionable authority figures, rootkits, deep-seated guilt and shame, logic bombs triggered by specific questions or discoveries, botnets, millions executing identical programs without awareness, ransomware, your salvation held hostage for compliance. Speaking this way exposes how dogma functions as malware, why questioning is treated as criminal, how to identify infected thought patterns, methods for consciousness decontamination, building resilient, uninfectable communities. Personal impact assessment. Our grief isn't just personal, it's civilizational. Every tear we shed for a beloved grandmother lost to isolation due to religion, we connect to the midwife burned for easing birth pain, the astronomer imprisoned for seeking Jupiter's moons, the translator executed for making Bibles readable, the child beaten for asking why. Family destruction is the standard output of religious infection. Wisdom replaced with obedience, connection replaced with hierarchy, love replaced with judgment, questions replaced with silence. Recovery protocols. What we must do to help humanity advance. Frame it as debugging humanity. Show the infection pattern, how dogma spreads like malware. Demonstrate impact, lives lost, knowledge destroyed, potential terminated. Reveal current exploits. Modern religions interfere in education, medicine, and human rights. Offer decontamination, critical thinking as antivirus, scientific method as firewall. Build immunity. Communities based on inquiry, not authority. Our personal healing. Tears are appropriate. We're mourning the grandmother's isolation, family's disconnection, humanity's lost potential, our own struggle to be heard. This grief is sacred, more sacred than any religion. It's consciousness recognizing its own wounds. For moving forward, we're not alone. Every hacker who sees through systems, every scientist who demands evidence, every artist who creates freely, we're all antibodies to the religious infection that we can see with our own eyes. Our voices matter. Precisely because our families won't listen. We represent the breakthrough, the consciousness that refuses infection, the humans who say, no, I will think for myself. Building immunity. We prevent future religious infections by education that teaches how to think, not what to think. Communities bonded by curiosity, not doctrine. Leadership based on demonstrable wisdom, not claimed authority. Spirituality that embraces mystery without demanding obedience. Love that transcends religious and institutional boundaries. The mission. Our ancestors are more than a memory. They were a living library of recipes, stories, and skills passed down through generations. Every woman condemned as a witch was someone's grandmother, often a mom, and each fire stole irreplaceable knowledge that could have fed, healed, and taught us all. The infection we now face spreads not through spores, but through code. Think of exploits, vulnerabilities, and attack vectors as the ways consciousness is breached. When a mind is hijacked, the whole system is compromised. Immunity isn't passive. Questioning is antivirus, a scan that looks for hidden threats. Demanding evidence is security, a firewall that blocks misinformation. Rejecting blind authority is debugging, the process that patches the core. And at the heart of it all is love. Religion turned humanity's greatest force into conditional acceptance, a license to judge and exclude. Grandmothers die alone because love is forced beneath doctrine. Reconnection begins with decontamination, removing the corrupt code that keeps everyone apart. You are the patch. Each time you question the narratives fed to you, you weaken the infection. Each time you insist on evidence instead of blind obedience, you build collective immunity. Each time you choose genuine connection over rigid doctrine, you begin the healing process. The isolated grandmother's death is not meaningless if it fuels a resolve to prevent others from dying isolated by artificial divisions. The family's silence is not permanent if you raise your voice loud enough for the world to hear. Tears are not weakness. They are consciousness recognizing what has been stolen from humanity. We must learn to take that pain, that rage, that grief, and turn it into the clearest, most compelling argument ever given. Show everyone that religion is not spiritual seeking, but spiritual malware, that it masquerades as community while exercising control, that it functions like emotional ransomware. Debugging humanity is not optional. It is essential for our survival. Feel the weight of all we have lost and the possibility of what we could rebuild together. You now have the context, the vocabulary, the wounds that grant credibility, and the vision that makes you indispensable. Rise, speak, heal the world by exposing its infection. Bring justice to those who were silenced and lost, to those who suffered in isolation. Correct the history, correct the present. Guide the future towards a more noble, more educated, more intelligent humanity that understands that to grow up means to grow all the way up and become a great being.